Well, a very, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us here on Choice 2017 on this 8th day of June 2017. Always a pleasure to have you tuned in tonight. Our main focus is on the politics of Gusii Land, which is Gusii County and Nyamira County. President Uhuru Kenyatta wound up his tour of both counties with goodies, definitely. But how important is this block to both NASA and Jubilee? My guest tonight, Professor Oweri Tumbo, political commentator. We have Anthony Kibagendi, who is a politician from Kitutu Chache South. We also have Dr. Chris Bichange, who is a former Nyaribari Chache member of parliament. He's, of course, seeking to reclaim that seat. And finally, Dismas Mokua, who is a political risk analyst. We're also expecting Jimmy Ngwen to come in for Member of Parliament for Kitutu Chache North, of course, seeking to reclaim that once again. But this discussion does not end here tonight. My colleague Linda Ogutu has something prepared for you just at around what time? Is it 10 p.m.? We'll still be all political.
Listen, so first of all, you're having a conversation about Gusii, and that's very important, especially thinking about the fact that the president gave a check to IDPs, and probably there has been a lot of talk on why now, you know, just a couple of days to the general election. But apart from that, and the reason why I'm here, is because you remember during the party primaries, there were certain areas we really focused on, and we called them the battlegrounds.
The battlegrounds.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about one of them today, Bomet. Is it Joyce Laboso or is it Isaac Ruto? And what chances does each have? Yeah, so Chris Tairu has worked on a very interesting piece that we'll be playing for our viewers during KTN Prime, and then we'll also have an extended version of that immediately after KTN Prime. That's about 10 p.m. And trust me, I have a very interesting panel that you absolutely do not want to miss. This is a conversation, and by the way, the good thing about it is we'll give our viewers a chance to call in and give their thoughts on it.
Even better, you get to engage, so don't sleep early. 10 p.m. we focus on the battleground, which is Bomet County, with Linda Ogutu, who will also be bringing you the primetime news. But for now, let's get back to the discussion on Gusii and Nyamira counties. I've already introduced my guests, so we start with the all-important question, gentlemen. Are Gusii and Nyamira counties swing votes? I'll start with you, Prof.
Thank you, Gusii. Good evening, viewers. I'll put it this way. Jubilee wishes it was a swing vote, but at the moment, it is a NASA dominant zone. So it is viewed as a swing vote by Jubilee on the basis that they think there is still room to persuade the voters to change their mind and vote for Jubilee. But at the moment, it's really, and you can see I think it's one of those counties that the Jubilee leadership feels that if it doesn't get it, it will jeopardize their chance of getting 25 counties out of the total in order to validly win the presidency. Yeah. So the answer to your question is, it is a battleground, all right, but it's not a swing vote.
It is a battleground?
Yes.
But it's not a swing vote. No. Do you agree with him, before I get to the politicians? Do you agree with him, Dismas?
I agree with him almost entirely. And when Jubilee says that Gusii and Nyamira are likely to be swing votes, they want to appeal to their voters. And you know, the President Kenyatta has been accused for so many errors of both commission and omission. And as Professor Tumba has indicated, Gusii can, or rather the two counties cannot be counted to be part of Jubilee. And you saw from the visit that he made to Gusii, and maybe several questions would arise that why was the Deputy President Ruto missing in action?
And of course we'll get to that.
Yeah. Now that's the reason, that's the big elephant in the room that Jubilee has not been able to address. And if that issue had been sorted much earlier in the day, then probably it would fall in that bracket of being a swing vote. But as it stands right now, President Kenyatta would be lucky to get 10% of the votes.
Kibagendi, Jubilee got about 30% from both counties in the 2013 general election, and we've seen him make numerous trips. We've seen both him and his deputy, him mostly, making numerous trips to Gusii. Do you think Jubilee has been able to make inroads in these two counties?
Absolutely not. In 2013, Jubilee got 27% from Gusii County and 30% from Nyamira County. But as it stands, as my brother Dismas has said, Gusii County is no longer a battleground. Uhuru is consequently dealing with unpleasant consequences of what I can call incompetence, of there was no inclusivity in his government, and the major issue that he went to address, the issue of IDPs that he has ignored for a long time. And I can call it too little, too late, because as professors put it, it is not a swing vote. Mm-hmm. It may be a battleground, depending on the number of times he'll visit and the number of goodies he'll take there, but still, is that the only place he's going to campaign, you know? Hence, from the look of things, NASA at the presidential level looks like it is going to sweep about 85%.
Dr. Bichange, you're from ODM, and of course under the umbrella of NASA. Are you as a team worried about these trips and goodies that the Jubilee is taking to the people of both counties?
Not really. It's actually Dr. Bichange, not Dr. Bichange.
Oh, pardon. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Quite frankly, to tell you the truth, I have a completely different version of battleground, at least the dictionary meaning. Battleground means there is hope. But in this case, coming from Gusii, I think the more Uhuru comes to Gusii, the more he annoys the people.
Why?
In fact, the more he doesn't come, the more he may get some votes there. Because the more he comes to Gusii, the more he reminds the Gusiis on how the government has been unfair to them. I'll take a very practical, personal example. I was in a function where fortunately, we were together with the minister, cabinet secretary for education, and he pleaded with the people, kindly vote for Uhuru so that I retain my job, quote unquote. Between you and me, any Kenyan citizen should never, never, never see a job as a gift. You should see a job as something of right. Now, the fact that Gusiis feel that they fit into that parable of the president said, some are eating meat and some are swallowing saliva.
Salivating.
Salivating. Then it means they're excluded. That anything the government gives them is a privilege, is a favor, it's not a right. The Gusiis are saying, once you come to me, you should come to me as a stakeholder of this nation. Any Kenyan citizen is the right to get a job if you have the right qualification.
So what? Gusiis are feeling disadvantaged by this government?
Disadvantaged by this government. And that's where Raila's brand of politics plays very well into the people, not the politicians. By the way, we politicians are doing or should do what the people expect. What do the people in Gusii expect? They expect delivery of government services as per everybody in the country, irrespective of where the presidency lies. The moment the Gusii man or woman who works very hard for his own good and for his own survival, the moment you tell the Gusii man or woman that this thing, you don't vote for government, you don't get services. Voting is a democratic right. Either way you vote, whether you vote for me or not, you deserve your tax revenue funds back. So the Gusii community, as we stand today, feel that the NASA government, led by His Excellency the Prime Minister, is going to give them hope for tomorrow. The Jubilee government is threatening to have two communities and affiliates. Now, anybody who is not a Kalenjin or a Kikuyu is seen as an affiliate in the Jubilee part. And the Gusii want to be in the middle of the politics they are enjoying, or they expect to enjoy, because right now they don't think they're enjoying. Right now, even UNGA is not there. When you look at the projects of the Jubilee government, what they're prating about, these are projects which were the brainchild of the coalition government of Kibaki and Raila.
But should it not matter that they actually implemented and saw that these particular projects were seen to their completion? Because what would it mean if they came in and started off new projects and decided these were projects started by the coalition government or the previous government?
It doesn't work that way. When you are in government, you are a servant. When you are an employee, the executive is a servant of the people. It doesn't matter who you are or which government you are. A government program is a government program. That's why you have three arms of government. You have the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, the executive is supposed to implement what has been planned. So you can't come in and implement your own programs. You come in and implement programs as per program.
So then you cannot fault them for implementing
No, I'm not
projects,
faulting them.
yeah?
I'm saying they should not just stamp for these programs, because these programs were the thought of the government that came before them. Anyway, they were supposed to do what they were supposed to do properly, and they earn money for that. Between you and me, you do know that SGR, for instance, there are several question marks about SGR.
All right, and we're getting to that.
Yes.
Weigh in on that.
I wanted to weigh in on his comments. Personally, I agree and contribute towards the effort of implementing projects that had been planned for, particularly under Vision 2030. Now, the untidy part of what the Jubilee government has done is this. I expected, for example, in basic political decency, that Mzee Mwai Kibaki should be called, since it was his baby, should be called to that function, and he's the one, for example, for purpose of protocol, to speak before the president speaks. Him, Raila, all right, and all the other, Mudi Awori, all those people who contribute and say, look, our foregone brothers, you did a good job, you put this thing in the fire, we have cooked it, it's ready for eating. So you come and celebrate with us. Now, the untidiness arose because the Jubilee government tried to pretend that they originated the project.
But has the work been done?
Of course the work has been done.
Shouldn't that be the issue?
I don't think that alone is enough. You see, there are things you do that are politically, logically, educationally, environmentally correct, but that may not be itself sufficient. In other words, by ignoring the origin of the project, they were trying to take credit for everything. That's where I'm coming from.
All right.
Not because I don't like Jubilee, but the thing looks, in terms of political good manners, one would have expected that we took over from you government, we're running, the things you kept cooking, they are now ready for eating. That's one aspect. The second aspect was that when they made too much effort to exclude everybody who was not politically correct. So that created queries that were not even there. The issue, Agisa, is not a disagreement that the SGR was built. It's even a blind person will know that it's been done. So the issue, we have moved away from the actual technical implementation, practical project implementation. Where we are at, before you wind down, what are the ifs and ops of the project? That's where the argument is at the moment.
All right. Anthony, the two people who've spoken before you say that Kisis have been largely disadvantaged. We're seeing the president the other day taking 358 million to the IDPs in Kisii and about 472 to the IDPs, I keep thinking IDPs in Nyamira County. This is the last batch of IDPs. Is it too little, too late, or it would work in terms of bringing him votes?
As I said from the start, it is too little, too late. But again, I'll surprise you that I'm one of the people who raised a petition to the government demanding that IDPs from Kisii County and Nyamira County be compensated. They had been ignored absolutely. And we raised alarm. We trended the topic across all social media so that the people can actually, the government can actually get to know that there is this thing that they haven't done. If you look at the past, in 2016, April, I remember the deputy president clearly stated that they have sorted out all the remaining IDPs. And after he said that, the preceding budget was read, that is in June, and we saw 6 billion shillings being budgeted for IDPs. So I'm wondering where that 6 billion shillings went to before we read this budget that was read the other day in April. And I'm asking myself, why should they compensate the IDPs from Gusii and Nyamira a fraction of the amount they're supposed to get, which is, they've given them 51,000 shillings each. Yet, the communities that the president comes from, he gave them 400,000 and a piece of land somewhere in Naivasha and somewhere in Maimahiu. So we are asking ourselves, is it that these are second-class citizens? That is one. Number two, where did the 6 billion shillings go to? Because now they are spending 700 million shillings. And we are asking, why did it have to come this time when we are just getting to the elections, you know? And that is where you may say the people who will be able to receive that amount may decide to vote for the president. But I'm asking myself again, how is this amount going to be administered? Because I'm told the check was written in some civil society's name. So we don't know who is actually going to administer these funds, who is going to manage them, who is going to distribute, and who will be able to tell who are IDPs. Because I'm told now there are over 80,000 people who have come out that they were IDPs. Yet the government had their documentation, they have their paperwork, they have the lists of the IDPs that we had. Another thing, while you deal with IDPs, people came from Kericho, people came from Sotik, people came from parts of Eldoret. I'm asking myself, will they be able to get their pieces back, their land that was taken from them forcefully? Yeah? Will they be able to be resettled comfortably and not live in fear? You know, these are some of the things we are asking ourselves, because a lot of money was spent to buy the property where they were. And again, you ask, these IDPs were integrated. You know, when you take extra baggage to your family, what it does to your budget. What is the government thinking about the families that house these people? Right. And these are the many questions that our people are asking, and we are wondering, is it purely because of the elections that we have ahead of us, or the government or the president thought it is prudent to actually compensate these people? So
too little, too late.
Too little, too late.
What is at stake for both NASA and Jubilee? Why is the Gusii land vote very important to both these camps?
Well, obviously, to win the election, you need to get at least 25% from 24 counties, and also you need 50% plus one. Probably the president thinks that the plus one may come from Gusii. But the structural issues that are going to cause a lot of bleeding for Jubilee, number one is Article 10 of the Kenyan Constitution, talking about inclusivity. When you look at the face of the Kenyan government, you don't get to see the Gusii representation. And Gusii has got a very solid human capital. For instance, we are told the most effective cabinet secretary is Dr. Matiang'i. So it would have been prudent for the president to have many more Gusiis serving either in the cabinet or senior positions in the public sector and parastatals. And you have to give him credit that he made some appointments. But the problem with the appointments is people say that all of them are related to one family, the Nyachai family. So the rest of the Gusii nation begins to ask questions. When the president was making these appointments, they did not bother to check out so that he has got a fair representation from the Gusii community. That's the first issue. Then the second issue, for the few Gusiis who are in the public sector, when they see promotions coming, whichever position they occupy, they've not been promoted. So there's a bit of frustration, and they were hoping that the president would respond to that. Then the third issue, and critically for the community, because largely the community is made up of businessmen and farmers. Now for the businessmen, when they want to do business with the national government and they go to the county headquarters, say in Gusii or Nyamira, and they want to do business with the national government, they don't have access to opportunities. And there are so many claims that there is a serious exclusivity, that if you're a Gusii man and you want to do business with the national government from Gusii or Nyamira, probability of getting those tenders is almost zero. And you know those issues have not been addressed. And as Anton has indicated about the IDP issue, people are beginning to wonder, 10 years later, and the deputy president as well as Anne Waiguru, times above number, they said these issues has been settled once and for all. And when the president comes very late in the day, obviously trying to influence the outcome of the elections, then he should have come with something more exciting. If other IDPs were given 400,000 in cash, a piece of land and a house, it's almost, I mean, it seems like it's a joke that now you go to the Gusii community and then you're giving them 50,000 10 years later. Maybe you would have given them each $1 million bob and then they would smile all the way to the bank. Because the Gusiis were invested, you know, in real estate. Most of them were farmers. If your annual turnover is 10 million, and then your property goes up in flame, you have been displaced, you expected something comfortable, but the president has failed to do that. And the biggest disaster that the president did, or the Jubilee team, is by getting these top public civil servants, all of them with the dotted links, being used as the special purpose vehicle for trying to get the Gusiis to the Jubilee side. So these are public servants who don't have any political capital. When they went to the villages and trying to campaign, people were just laughing at them and rolling their eyes. And even a number of them have been accused that the only reason why you're in Jubilee, you are serving your personal selfish interest. You are not representing the community interest. Because people are saying, we've got tea, we've got coffee, how come the bonuses we get or the payments are not comparable with the other parts of Kenya? They keep on looking at Central Province saying, why do we get 10% of what they're getting? And nobody has come out to give that information. So with that in mind, as again Dr. Bichaga indicated, probably the president would get many more votes if he actually avoided going to Gusii. Because the moment you go to Gusii, you are reminding them of what they consider to be injustices.
So he's making it worse every other time.
It's complicating it. And also there is another elephant in the room. Outside the fact that people accuse the deputy president of the injustices, the TGRC report has not been implemented. And people wanted that implemented so that they get their fair share. You know, truth and reconciliation. If 2007 and 8, you had, say, 20 cows, you'd got a big house, and a fella comes in the middle of the night, kills your cows, kills some of your family members, it's not easy to say, accept and move on. You need some sort of reconciliation. You need a Desmond Tutu-like infrastructure whereby people come, admit liability, then maybe you pray, you sacrifice, and you celebrate a new beginning. But that one has not happened. All right,
Dr. Bichage, we've seen politicians from Gusii and both Nyamira defect to Jubilee, then come back to ODM. Good example is Richard Onyonka. I'm not going to give you because of your vested interest. So this question will not be on you, Prof. You can rest easy. Is the ground hostile?
Now, that's what I said earlier. When you talk about politicians defecting, the point here is, what is the will of the people? There is a famous saying, if the people lead, politicians will follow. Now, if you go to Jubilee because you want some kata, some personal gain, some money, some cash flow management, your people have their own vision, what they expect. Now, if you go back and you still want to be in politics, and they tell you we are in NASA, you have no option. You saw Maangi trooping back the other day, and much later after Richard Onyonka. If the people have decided we don't like the vision of Jubilee, we like what NASA is doing, and they are giving us hope. And by the way, when you look at the two, where NASA is in the opposition now, Jubilee is in power. When you're in power, you should not tell people what you're going to do. When you're in power, it's a scorecard. You should say 5 years, give me a report card. And you should be elected on your report card. The opposition, us, we have the benefit and the advantage of saying, we shall do, we hope to do. This is our vision. The vision, you don't have to mark it against the past. But when you are in power, we mark you against the past. And you can now tell us, like my brother Kebagan said, you come 2 months the elections, and you are saying we are giving you 50,000 because you are an IDP. When actually a year ago or thereabouts, you said we've done the balance sheet for IDPs. August 9th, Uhuru Kenyatta is not the president. He may not have the logistical arrangement to actually fulfill that promise because you have a new government in power. which will be read by Raila Odinga.
And you seem so
So
sure.
what do you do? What do you do about what you promised? You should actually talk about what you did.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, Auntie.
I've constantly said that Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will be a one-term president. And I think I'm the one who started that hashtag some time back last year. But on the issue that he has raised, the way Onyonka went to Jubilee and then back, it is purely about our constituency. Kitutu Chache South, you cannot make it if you are in Jubilee. The constituency has a community, a Luo community, a substantial number, about 10,000, 7 to 10,000 votes, that if you're on this other side, then that will be used to tilt the vote in favor of the person that is in NASA. Yeah? But again, you need to ask yourself, why did all MPs from the region, the women representative and the senator actually go to Jubilee? Yeah? It was because there was infighting within ODM. The governor became too bossy, too arrogant, too everything. He wanted to be the everything of that county. And that is why they left. Unfortunately, they met hostility because, as my brother Dismas has said, there was no inclusivity in this government. You look at, he has not been able to identify specifics, which I'm going to do. Like in Postal Corporation of Kenya, we had the CEO, Dr. Enoch Kinara, who was sacked unfairly, purely because of his tribe. And various other people, including in NSSF, including Kirdi, you know, all these parastatals that we had a few people from the region were serving Kenyans. But they were quickly dismissed in favor of people from the likable tribes for the government, that is. Those are some of the things that have affected the Jubilee government's entry into the region. Another thing, they used the wrong approach. There is no way Uhuru and Ruto, who call themselves Vijana, can use people of a generation that is older than them to penetrate for them the ground.
So this was a wrong move, having the likes of Obure and Nyachai.
Obure knows how to look for his votes, but he doesn't know how to convince my generation and the generations that follow to actually vote for this government, because my generation and generations that follow purely focus on things that are happening right now. They don't talk about, they don't talk much about the past. They are looking at how has this government treated us now. Do we have jobs?
Yeah.
Prof, is Obure able to convince people of your generation, since he cannot convince people of
thank you,
Anthony's generation?
Actually, he's made a valid point, but I want to take it back, Kidogo, about the IDPs. One of the most painful aspects of that IDP problem is this conclusion that you are integrated into your community. So mukae hapo. If you had your property in Eldoret, in Kericho, elsewhere, you imeenda.
Go back home.
They are being told, you stay there. Whatever you left behind there was or will be given to the people who are given land and given money. Nyinyi kaeni hapo. That is why, that is really the genesis of all this. So you are telling them, it doesn't matter how much effort you had made, how much investment you had made, it didn't matter. You stay there. Even if it is 1/8 of an acre in Gusii, you stay there and survive there. And the reason we can't give you more is you have a 1/8 of an acre. What are you going to do with 1 million shillings in 1/8 of an acre? That is an extremely painful thing. Secondly, there is this cloud from the money donated by the president that certain people sat down and prepared an IDP list.
Was the money donated by the president?
Just a minute. I apologize. I will say it in another way. You know, the money, we don't even know if it is there, because there was a dummy check given to an integrated something.
Oh, we'll definitely follow up on that.
All right? Now, nobody knows who forms this NGO. Nobody knows where the money is. Nobody knows who prepared the list. In fact, when I was talking to people in Gusii this morning, the question was, is it the Jubilee brokers who prepared that list? We were, one of them told me, we were told, we know from our interactions that we were about 40,000. Through attrition and through other activities, the numbers went down to 23. Now, at the moment, we are about, Gusii and Nyamira, about 22. So when you do the arithmetic, the money becomes what they call, euphemistically, 50 plus 1. 51,000. So the issue is very simple. The public was not practically prepared for this kind of action. The worst thing is this. You are giving people 51,000 10 years after they lost their livelihood. And you have given people 10 years in advance, all right, 100 to 150 times more than these ones. So what has happened, and I agree with Chris Bichage, the president's visit and the checks have created more problems than solving a problem. The reason is it has aroused issues and questions of historical injustice, of marginalization, and outright exclusion. And the interesting thing, there is a saying in Gusii, all right? Unajipigania. Mimi, and we normally say, I don't eat in your home. Isn't that?
I don't eat or sleep at yours.
I don't eat or sleep at yours. So nobody can look down. If you go to a Gusii man's house, in a Majani house, Majani, in a thatched roof, he will not allow you to sit on his stool. We bad on Mugeni. So when the president goes and says, the government has brought you this, the question is very simple. Doesn't it sound like voter bribery? Doesn't it really sound like voter bribery?
But the Kenyans seem to have gotten used to that. It has been witnessed
the important question, it's a legal question. Doesn't it sound like voter bribery? I'm trying not to say outright that it's voter bribery.
And I'm trying not to answer you.
But the point here is this. When you are in government, my understanding is that you should have a program. When you get elected into office, you should have a program for the whole nation. This is one government which has promoted ethnicity of the worst kind in the history of independent Kenya. Forget about colonialists. Today, a kid of 10 years knows that he's a Kikuyu, knows that he's a Gusii, knows that he's a Kalenjin. It's a very sad awakening for our national integration. This government has brought to the front the idea that if you don't belong to a certain tribe, you don't expect certain benefits. And we are trying to kill this as a people. We are saying, whether you're a Gusii or a Kikuyu or a Kalenjin, for God's sake, you should be sure that if you go to Nyeri and you are a Gusii, you should open a kiosk and sell potatoes to Kikuyus. If you are a Kikuyu, you should go to Kisumu, open a kiosk, sell fish to Luos. But the concept that has been created by this government, the Tuko Pamoja government, is that if you're not in your community environment, you are unsafe. And we are saying, devolution said, take development, the grassroots, but allow Kenyans to choose freely whether to live in Mombasa, or Kisumu, or Eldoret. Truly, you know today that if you are a Luya and you go to Nyeri and you start a business in Nyeri town, you have to lock your door 4 times because you are not Kamau. But I'll tell you for free.
Vice versa.
I'll tell you for free, I'll challenge you that if you go to Gusii town today, I have 8,000 Kikuyu voters in my constituency. Nobody points a finger at them. He sees them as Kenyans.
All right.
And we want to tell this government that we want to go back there. And that's why we say the NASA government has promised all Kenyans free access to national resources so long as the taxes are collected from all Kenyans. You should feel free to live anywhere and work anywhere and feel a Kenyan. And we want to kill ethnicity. There is no way we are going to build a nation when you are seeing us as 42 tribes. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm fighting for NASA to win. Because I want to know that my daughter will be married by Kikuyu and feel safe during elections in Kirinyaga.
Okay, all right.
So the point here is, when we are talking about NASA and the Jubilee, and the Gusii Politics. The Gusiis are seeing a problem because the Gusiis are very ambitious, very enterprising, very outgoing.
All right,
they want to go everywhere.
All right. Remember, you can engage with us on Twitter at KTN News. Tonight, we expected to have Jimmy Angwenye, the Member of Parliament for Kitutu Church and North, affiliated to Jubilee, seemingly hasn't been able to make it, but there's the Ruto factor in Gusii. Dismas, you'd mentioned it earlier on. He has not accompanied Uhuru Kenyatta in this particular tour. He opted to be in Kakamega, where the president